Monday, actually, the 18th of March, we thought, why not take the opportunity to highlight a lot of the work we've been doing and planning more so around the Daz Good Ting campaign. Many of you may not have heard of it or seen it yet. It only just got going just before Carnival. It's being executed by Lonsdale, and it's part of the Catalyzing the Circular Economy initiative that Cropper is implementing for the IDB. And my colleague Alyssa Black is here to tell you a lot more about the campaign itself as part of the wider project. But this is just to welcome you and to let you know that that's why we decided to take more of a circular approach. I know World Recycling Day, of course, we focus on recycling as one of the major waste interventions or waste minimization interventions. But one of the things we learned when we started planning this campaign last year with the multitude of representatives we have on our advisory committee is that the real crux of the matter is indeed waste. And while recycling is one way of minimizing it, reducing it, there are many other things that perhaps are not sufficiently highlighted. And so that's why the campaign took on a whole other spin, and we decided to just explore the value of things that we may be very quick to throw out. And so we're so happy to have the presenters we do here today who are all and have all worked in areas of minimizing waste and taking what we may consider waste to make good things with it. All right, so before we get into the presentations this afternoon, we do have, as I said, my colleague Alyssa Black, who is leading the Catalyzing the Circular Economy project for the Cropper Foundation. She's the project officer, and she will start us off this afternoon with a presentation, an overview of the Daz Good Ting campaign. From there, we'll hear from what we call our neighborhood electronics people in St. James. So they're actually just around the corner from us, and they have, I don't know if I can call it a treasure trove so much, but they actually are working to repair lots and lots and lots of small appliances and big ones too, like big screen televisions. And we thought it's the perfect opportunity to highlight that work and how it fits into the conversation we're having today. And then from there, we go to our speakers this afternoon. So Alyssa, over to you.
Thank you for the introduction, Adine. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll just wait for my colleague to share my presentation. Brandon. Okay. So this will be a very short presentation. They told me I have 5 minutes, so I'll try to keep it as short as possible. So as Adine would have mentioned, I'll be providing a brief overview of our Daz Good Ting campaign, which is really targeted at changing consumer behavior towards waste. And this is one activity that falls under our wider project by the IDB Lab on catalyzing and connecting the circular economy. Next slide, Brandon. Okay, so before we get into the details of the campaign, I wanted to touch briefly on our campaign design approach. So under the same IDB Lab project, we would have initially conducted a survey to gauge a person's knowledge, attitudes, and practices towards waste and on the circular economy, and really define what are the problems the campaign should address. So one of the key takeaways from the survey was that although persons are willing to participate in sustainable practices such as recycling, there is a lack of participation due to a lack of awareness and also access to reliable services. So after this, we sought out to bring together some of the key active players in the waste management sector locally to help advise on the campaign design. So some of them would be like from the representatives from the EMA, from Every Bottle Back, cashew gardens, so NGOs, businesses, consultants, public entities. So thirdly, we decided to pull some of those members into form a smaller group and held a 3-day design sprint exercise to help brainstorm what the theme and the message of the campaign should be. And thus, Daz Good Ting was born. So what does Daz Good Ting mean? Probably exactly what you're thinking. So it's a phrase that has two meanings. One, which is really to celebrate persons who are taking part in these sustainable practices with regards to waste, such as the 5 Rs, and to also point out that materials that people commonly dispose are of value and they are good things. So we wanted to keep the tone or the message positive. So we realized that past campaigns tend to shame, Trinidadians for littering and stuff. So we said we'll take a different approach. We'll keep it more positive. We'll keep it Trimbegonian and we'll keep it relatable. So as the phrase is, that's a good thing. Everybody could relate to that. Right. Next slide, Brandon. So what exactly do we want the campaign to achieve? So the goal really is simple. We want to reduce the amount of waste sent to landfills, not looking at any particular waste stream. How do we want to achieve this? So we would like to increase awareness of local circular economy initiatives such as recycling. We like to celebrate small wins. So every action, no matter how small, can have an impact. So we realize that recycling and stuff is not really on the forefront of the average treating mind. So, a simple thing as you're using your bottle dish at home, that's a good thing. And hopefully if we encourage that or acknowledge that, people will be encouraged to do more, right? And then we also want to engage persons at more of a community level and get them more involved in like circular economy businesses and partaking in these sustainable waste practices. Okay, so getting the message across. So how do we explain what is Daz Good Ting or increase awareness on local circular economy businesses? So primarily, the campaign right now is digital based. So we have 2 social media accounts on Facebook and Instagram. And currently, we have our Daz Good Ting comic series out, which really just touches on how we could reuse certain items in our everyday lives. We have a spoken word video that's been out. We'll be meeting with businesses or interviewing them to get to know their stories and getting quotes from them on, what their circular economy business entails. We'll be having spotlight posts and also providing like educational tips on sustainable practices. So you can see then some of the images we have plastic designs. She actually takes plastic bottles and converts them into tiles. Right? So that's what we're doing currently right now with the campaign on our social media platform. So the future of the campaign. So unfortunately, the campaign does end this year, June 2024. It's running for 5 months, so it started in February. We would like to keep the campaign going to sustain it. We will be doing a post-capsule survey to build on the initial survey that we did to measure any impact. And we intend to do some radio, TV interviews, through different mediums, spread the word through different mediums. We are trying to do some more community engagement, or would like to collaborate more with different entities, other ongoing campaigns, get some sponsorship. And then lastly, we're actually working on a community campaign toolkit. So this is being designed by Cashew Gardens, who do a lot of work, like recycling work with communities, and they will help create. So the community campaign toolkit would help other communities be able to create and implement low cost and effective campaigns on waste reduction. So the toolkit could be tailored to different communities really, and it will be very local based. So certain things like how to get source funding locally, or what are the different local public sector entities persons could reach out to for support or collaboration. Next slide. And then lastly, how you can get involved in the campaign right now. So you could like, follow, and share our That's Good Thing on Facebook and Instagram. And we actually have a That's Good Thing challenge happening in recognition of World Recycling Day. And there's an International Zero Waste Day, which is on March 30th. The challenge is simple. You just have to tell us, what action or how do you take action to reduce waste in your everyday lives. And there are prizes to win. And lastly, if you know someone or you have a circular business that would like to be featured through the campaign, please reach out to us and we would love to feature your business. So I think that was in 5 minutes. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. Alyssa is actually well known for her ability to stick within time, and people love doing meetings with her for that reason. I think that gives a really good context for what we're talking about today. And it's also so useful to be able to tie in the work that we're doing at Proper with the educational and outreach efforts of platforms like like Cari-Bois, the Environmental News Network, and as well tie it back now to all the people who are doing such good work in this space. And it's on that basis we thought to highlight the next video that you'll see, the people presented in that video. So I want to point out that Alyssa was actually the one in our organization who pointed us to them. They're literally just around the corner from where we are in St. James. And it's a shop, a nondescript small space that you may pass by every day and really not notice what's happening there. But if you stopped for any amount of time and paid attention, you'd see so many people just passing in and out, just dropping off things, collecting things that they take there to get repaired. And so it was a pleasure to speak with the two gentlemen who work there. The older one, Mr. Michael George, who's been in doing this work since I think he said 13 years old, and he's now 60. And then there's Shane Thomas, who was a bit younger, but he's also been involved in the field for about 20 years. And they're both technicians. And this is some of what they had to share when we asked them about waste. So when you go in there, you actually see piles and piles of things that need to be repaired. And sometimes they're missing a part, sometimes, maybe people forgot to come collect them. But it just goes to show, I mean, just having the visuals of what that space looks like is a reminder for us of how much waste we can potentially generate when we decide to throw things out, just given the sheer number of things, the sheer volume of things they have to repair at the shop. So without any further ado, I want to show you this video, a short video, an excerpt of an interview we did with them talking about the issue around electronic waste. Brandon,
right.
you
One of the
can
main
take it.
problem with electronics waste in Trinidad is because some of the equipments that they do sell out here, the parts to repair them is not readily available. And some of the other things, the cost of repairing those equipment, it will be cheaper to buy a new one because of the type of prices that they put on the parts, one. The other situation is that the low quality stuff that they bring in here into the country. At times you will find certain electronic equipment because of the poor quality inside of them. Like some of them use a lot of glue and other things to cause components to stay together more firmly on the board without to prevent vibration. These things that they use eventually corrodes inside of those equipment. When it corrodes, there is no use for it other than the dump. Can't be repaired.
And I remember one of the issues you talked about was the number of counterfeit items as well.
Correct, right. Correct is right. a lot of counterfeit items, things that don't really meet up the standard, right? In other words, they was not designed for this country or for this region, because some of them, they are rated at 110 and 115. Our voltage here is 120. So there's no how some of those equipment should be brought into this country.
Shane, do you have any assessment of what is responsible for the amount of electronic waste you see being produced in the sector?
It's more to say it's on, like, for the fans itself. Depends on the brand of fan that you go and purchase. If it fall and the blade breaks, you have no way to get the blade to replace it. So you will see a lot of people throw away, which fans are mainly made out of plastic. You'll see they throwing away the item because you cannot get the part for it. And that is where the problem does come from. It do have distributors of a certain brand here, but it have no way of you could get the parts to replace it with. So as simple as a blade, which is from the cheaper fans, you wouldn't be able to get the part itself to replace replace it when it has broken. The people just go everywhere asking to see if anybody have any blades, looking, and they can't get none. But that is a common problem with some of the fans itself. So that does cause more waste. So not knowing where you could get something for it, the agents don't carry it, and as a normal citizen, places like us are scarce. So most of the people do not know that things is being repaired. They don't even realize that it have places where there's do repairs on certain items. You know about air conditions and refrigeration, but you don't know about electronics or your appliances. So you have no way of knowing where to go and who to do what for you. And that is where the problem has come from.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brandon, for that. So for those who might have joined during the video, those are two technicians working very near to the Cropper Foundation office. They've been working out of a space there for a long time, Michael George and Shane Thomas. And that was just a short excerpt from a longer interview we did with them yesterday, just talking a little bit about how they see the challenge of waste and what are some of the ways to combat it. And it was very interesting to note how much emphasis Mr. George in particular placed on the need to teach that kind of repair activity from a young age to get young people involved, and to emphasize more of that trade skills part of our education curriculum, and he had a lot of thoughts, as you can imagine, to express on it, but that's all we're able to share with you today. We're hoping that maybe we can follow up with something a little more structured that we can present to the wider public, because we think some of these perspectives are really invaluable to the bigger issue. When we talk about waste as a big issue, there are people who've been working in the sector in their own ways, probably not seeing themselves as major actors in the sector, but doing their part on a daily basis. So on that note, we get ready now for our first presenter. Yes, we still have 3 presentations coming up for you. And we're really happy to welcome our first speaker, who is Mr. Juan Andrade. So this is a little bit about Juan, who is from Flying Tree. Some of you, I'm sure many of you on this call would actually be very familiar with Flying Tree and the work they do to repurpose old plastics. So with a passion for pioneering efforts in conservation, Juan Andrade is the managing director of Flying Tree Environmental Management. As head of this registered nonprofit, he focuses on reforestation and ecosystem rehabilitation. Under his guidance, Flying Tree's innovative aerial reforestation program reaches remote areas inaccessible by foot, fostering habitat regeneration. For nearly 20 years, Flying Tree has impacted ecosystems in Trinidad and Tobago, Brazil, Colombia, Argentina, and Nepal. Ms. Andrade's vision continues to drive Flying Tree's mission, embodying a fusion of environmental stewardship and an adventurous spirit. When he's not sharpening his expertise in environmental science, Juan is an accomplished international paragliding competitor and practices extreme sports. And one of the things you'll notice about our presenters is the range of skill and talent they all possess. So without any further ado, Juan, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Very good day. Thank you very much for the opportunity of sharing with you what I think about being sustainable on this difficult time of environmental evolution that we have. We must realize that the environment sometimes doesn't really get damaged, but evolve. It's a difficult philosophical stuff about when we say we need to go there and save the environment, we need to save the planet. It's more about we need to save our house, we need to save really the people living on it, because the planet itself have proven, like in COVID, that without the humans, it could fix itself. Sustainability, the best sustainable practices we can do with the environment is don't do anything that damage the environment. Okay, but because we do things that actually damage the environment, we need to make it a little more sustainable, and it's there where we have the opportunity to work. I hope I'm not talking too around, as people say, beating the bush. To talk a bit about our experience and this journey in Trinidad and Tobago and in the planet, I will need to first talk about becoming sustainable as an NGO, as a company, or as anything we do as a sportsman. You also need to be sustainable. Sustainability is the key of all our endeavors, is the key of being able to do the stuff. Without sustainability, the wheel stop turning. Sustainability, in order to create sustainability, I will need to talk a bit about a company called Milagro Solutions. Milagro Solutions is a per-profit company. It's actually out there to make money by actually making plastic bottles, containers, cups, and engineering. And because of that, companies, they are making profits out of plastic, but at the same time, the very core of the directors of the company are very involved in also in environmental activities, in sports, etc. And then because of that, it was this need of creating a balance or a sustainable practice in between the private industry per profit and somebody who go out there and actually mitigate that environmental damage created by the plastics. And it's so how Flying Tree actually born from the creation of what we call, we establish as a symbiotic relationship in between the private industry and the nonprofit NGO and NPOs. As a model, we realized that it do work. And why I want to talk so much about it is because remember we're talking about sustainability. And in order to make our work sustainable, sustainability is not waiting for grants. Sustainability is not waiting for government helps. Sustainability is when an entity could run and close its loop and is able to self-sustain economically and operationally. Just the same thing with what we do with the environment. Any sustainable practice will be cutting a tree and planting two, like what Brazil does. Brazil exports a lot of timber and lumber, but for every lumber they cut, they actually planting 2 or 10 or more. It's like a whiskey factory. Every time you drink a bottle of whiskey, it's because somebody's putting 2 other bottles inside a barrel. And here comes the most difficult part. That tree or that whiskey or that job is not going to actually give the results, but many, many years after you did the sowing of your actual seed. So sustainability, sometimes it doesn't have an immediate and direct reaction. It's more about being consistent on the job we do. So In this symbiotic relationship, the plastic production is mitigated by the NGO, but at the same time, in the symbiotism, the NGO provide collection of plastics, cleaning of the environment, of the actual factory environment, training in safety and training in all the different aspects of the employees, engineering structures to save money, engineering structures to have a better production, etc. So in order to create a proper sustainability, we first created this symbiotism in between the private and the NGOs, which actually it do work. So it's a proven fact that it's possible and it actually works. Within those activities, Flying Tree Environmental Management have done a lot of research in what to do with the plastics, how to help the environment, etc. Plastics, for example, we collect plastics from not only Milagro Solutions. We are in direct partnership or symbiotic relationship with, for example, Swimco, Every Bottle Back, EMA, to extend even Cachu Gardens. We also do symbiotism with the private industry like Agostini Group, maybe Hatco Group, other recyclers like New Age. We also have funded environmental centers of training and learning centers for environment in Kernan, Haman, Cascadux, and in Roxborough, Tobago. We actually did actually get involved in the first Trinidad and Tobago police, community and environmental police, actually now created in Arima. We are the environmental part of it. And in that way, we teach, we carry the technology in what to do with the plastic, how to use the plastics, how to reprocess the plastic, how to upcycle and reduce the plastics, etc. So we have this proactive approach as an NGO with symbiotism with all these other stakeholders and members that actually is proven to work. At the same time, within our sustainable practices, okay, because we actually, within the plastic, we created something called plastic lumber. Plastic lumber is construction items, as you can see in the photo. They look like lumber. They look just like wood. They can be cut and screw, and they can be erect any building, anything, but it's made with the discarded plastics of Trinidad and Tobago. All that little being you can see in the photo is a teaching aid that we put. That one is in Pigeon Point, and you can realize that is an educational item made. The entire being is made with recycled plastics that we collect from the dump. So we could become sustainable by creating products out of the discarded materials as well as what we do there. In other aspect of sustainability with respect to Netia, we're not only cleaning Netia from unwanted plastics and microplastics, but we also do aerial reforestation programs. Is also a sustainable practice because the people actually contribute. We exchange excitement and we exchange this emotional training and this betterness for the soul and for the mind by flying like birds over the coastal area of Trinidad and Tobago. We do it in Trinidad and in Tobago. And at the same time, you carry seeds with you, native seeds that are collected by the community, and the people actually drop the seeds on difficult to access areas, and we're doing aerial reforestation in that flying machines. So what happens is the carbon print that you generate to have your excitement day, your fun day, you also mitigate it by planting trees. So it's again a symbiotic relationship in between tourism, in between tourism, an NGO, private people, and the environment. So we make a better environment by having fun in it. The guys also planting trees, coconut trees, and we planting almond trees and so in the beach to prevent coastal erosion. So they are involved in many activities that make this journey passing through our beautiful earth a more worthy experience. When you try, every time you try to do an activity, you leave the activity by leaving a better planet and not by damaging the planet. Nothing wrong with plastics. And nothing is wrong with the plastics. It's nothing wrong with the using of the plastics, etc. I just want you to note that it's just about the use we give to the plastics. It's how we embrace the plastics. Plastics could save life, make a better life for all the human beings in the planet. Might as well, if we do wrong use of it or lack of education and training, we could damage the environment and our life and our health will not be that good, of course. I invite you all to study the environment and see how you can do a high exchange of carbon print for everything you do. If you go to, for example, you go to the beach and you know you're going to spend all this fuel going to the beach, etc. Carry a little bag, pick up the plastic and bring it to the guys who recycle to do the job. And no matter how small you think it was, by picking up your little garbage for the day, yes, a bit counts. It's nothing like a small effort. Every effort is important when we collectively do it. Thank you very much for having me here. And let's enjoy a beautiful country.
And thank you very much, Juan. We really appreciate the light you're able to shed on the work that you all are doing. And I can personally attest to the paragliding experience and reforestation efforts. It's quite exhilarating. It was one of my highlights that year, I remember. So I'm here to testify, Juan. But thank you also for underscoring the importance of collaboration and working together as being very fundamental to the principles of circularity, which is really what we're talking about, in this conversation. That's what we're pushing. So thanks again, Juan. And we get ready now for our second presenter, Richard Sebro, who is a scientist with a passion for STEM. He is the current president of the Central Pathfinders Environmental Foundation, which is an environmental NGO founded in 2014 and brings environmental awareness among grassroots people and through community engagement activities and innovative projects. The group is responsible for the creation of the Captain Turner Urban Composter, which was designed to reduce organic waste going into landfills. In 2013, Mr. Sebro was a special prize winner as he walked away with the Prime Minister's Award for Scientific Innovation and Invention. Richard has also won the I2I Prize Innovation to Invention, I2I Prize in 2013 and 2015, as well as the third place at the 2023 TTIPO Appropriate Technology Innovation Competition. Apart from his NGO and innovation works, he also lectures at COSTAT, and so we're happy now to welcome Richard Sebro to deliver his presentation.
Thank you, Adi. So thank you everyone for the opportunity to speak on these topics, which are something that I think is very important to be discussed in society. So all protocols observed. I know we have some very distinguished guests here. So we're talking about a circular world, a circular economy. And I think the title that Cropper Foundation chose, Daz Good Ting, I think that's a Trinism, as I call them. And it's a very fitting title because that's what you typically hear when you're about to throw away something and somebody has a use for it. So you say, hey boy, no, that's good thing, So when I saw the title, it immediately conjured that image for me. And I thought, okay, I know exactly where they're going with this and what they want to discuss. So The circular world follows on the idea of the circular economy, and that concept was first brought out by a guy called Daz Good Ting, a British economist, who used it in a 1982 publication, right? This is very old concepts, but it's now coming to the forefront and now being implemented. He wrote a publication called Economic Theory and Natural Resources, which laid the groundwork for the circular economy. And the core principle of the circular economy is that keeping materials and products in use for as long as possible is a beneficial thing for society, right? So it aligns with sustainability principles like reduce, reuse, recycle, which many of us grew up hearing as a mantra, just chanted to us over and over. But the circular economy is a little bit more than just reduce, reuse, recycle. It's really appreciating the value of things and the carbon footprint of how things are even manufactured. All right, so I was happy to hear Juan talk about his plastics company. And as he said, plastics is not necessarily in itself a bad thing, but there comes a problem when we have too much single-use plastics, right? That's where we are drinking a bottle of water and we drink 8 or 9 bottles of water a day. And every single bottle we want to throw in the bin, right? So that's not an example of circular economy. That's what we call resource depletion. That's a linear model, which is take, make, and dispose, right? And that model relies heavily on extracting virgin resources, right? So that's what we currently use a lot more of, and that's what's actually promoted in the media, right? You don't want to be always having to make something and MacGyver something, right? Is actually looked down upon in Chinese society if you always have to be making some new tool, right? It gives a vibe, as the people would say, of not having enough money. Is it because you don't have enough money why you always making something? Well, not necessarily that, but just appreciating that it could have another use, right? So I think that Daz Good Ting gives us that impression that, okay, some of these things could be used in a circular way, all right? But we have to appreciate that a lot of the resources we use now, they take a lot of very skillful manufacturing processes. There's a huge chain of very skilled and specialized individuals who put things together, and they use very specialized materials, right? So especially I was happy to see the electronics people speaking up, because we use rare earth metals in some of our electronics today, right? And at the end of use, and these things are designed to fall apart, as they were saying, right? They use glues and other materials that they know are not going to last more than 5 years. And they make it so that the product will fall apart and you have to buy another one, right? So again, another example of the take, make, and dispose model. So we have to appreciate what we've been fed on, what we've been raised on, and start to free our minds a little bit so where we can see the value in the materials that we have and form that network of specialized individuals who can now extract. And as Ardeen was saying, I study microbiology, so I always think of it like a network of specialist organisms that will, take the value out at different layers, right? So things like lithium shouldn't be going to the dumps, right? But of course, we are doing that every day. Right, so traditional production methods generate significant pollution, both during manufacturing as well as through waste disposal. So we have to look at the manufacturing side as well. Is it being done in a way that's conscientious of the impact and the footprint of what they are doing? And then as well as the waste disposal methods, are these things being properly disposed of? Because the problem is that landfills are overflowing and recycling rates and recycling facilities often fall short, right? So I can tell you of one program in Port of Spain. They want to recycle plastic bottles, but the facility now is constantly having challenges. The plastic bottles have reached to the roof in the building that they have, right? So this is an example of nice ideals, great idea, but the implementation is difficult. It comes with a lot of challenges, right? So the efforts of people like Juan who do the recycling here, and they have the facility, that cannot be underestimated. It needs to be appreciated, and we need to have more people like that being stimulated and given encouragement. Right? So with the ability to extract these resources out of things that have had some use before, we now have a circular economy, or we have the potential for a circular economy, where we could open doors for innovation, right? And as my intro would have given you an idea, I'm big on innovation. I like to see new inventions, I like to see people being creative, right? And we have a culture of creativity here. Every trainee is a creative person, sometimes too much so, right? But it needs to be channeled. It needs to be given the resources. And we need to have some amount of encouragement, I would say, from the government, but even from civil society groups like ourselves. We try to encourage people to innovate and make new products. So that's what we try to encourage at the household level. So I'm here because of the Captain Turner compost tumbler. And the Captain Turner is designed to reduce organic waste going to the landfill, right? So that's the reason why we produce it, but also in the manufacturing of it. The actual drum that we use in the Captain Turner is itself a recycled product, right? So those barrels would have been used for something else, but we are able to refurbish them and make them into something that is now being used to create good soil for growing crops, right? So in this instance, again, the plastic isn't negative, it's able to be reused and do good things for the environment, right? So we have to be conscientious that these opportunities are there, and that every instance of trying to make a new product isn't an example of someone being socially disenfranchised or being poor. Sometimes it's literally just the creativity that's coming out, and we need to encourage that and remove the negative stigma of that creativity. Right, so outside of Trinidad, these things have been encouraged. The European Union has a few states, the Netherlands, Finland, Germany, France, they're leading the way in terms of the circular economy. These countries have implemented national circular economy strategies and invested in recycling infrastructure, right? They enacted policies like extended producer responsibility. So again, on the manufacturing side, these producers now are aware that they have to be responsible for where their product ends up, right? So this is what's happening in the wider world. All right, so other countries are places like South Korea, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, China. Each country has its own approach, focusing on areas such as construction waste reduction, right? So we have a lot of construction waste being generated here as well. Bio-based materials, so again, being creative in terms of raw materials, and product design for longevity, right? Because that's a side effect of the capitalist model, where products are designed only to last a limited amount of time to encourage you to buy a new one. So the alternative is to design a product that actually lasts a long time. And that in itself will have benefits for the environment and serve to our circular economy. Right, so I also thought it would be useful to look at what the bankers and the financiers think of the concept of circular economy. So I had a look into what the World Bank recommends. The World Bank emphasizes the need for government policies that incentivize circular practices, right? So I know this may be going contrary to what Juan said, that the government's not responsible. Sure, they're not. But at the same time, the individual would be faced with an insurmountable challenge if they had to, on their own, overcome everything, all the stigmas, etc., towards creating these circular economies, right? So it needs to be something that is incentivized on a larger scale, right? So some strategies, extended producer responsibility schemes, where manufacturers are responsible for the end-of-life management of their products. Additionally, eco-design standards and regulations that promote recyclability and repairability. Right, so the World Bank also acknowledges the need for financial instruments to support a transition to circular economy. This could involve public-private partnerships, green bonds, or subsidies for innovative circular businesses. Right, so I think we're making some inroads, making some small steps in that direction, but a lot more needs to be done. Also, capacity building and knowledge sharing. So this is what's happening here. We're sharing knowledge. A lot of these stakeholders who are already involved in it, some of the first innovators are coming and sharing their experiences. So I think that that's something that Trinidad has been doing and making attempts, but there needs to be a little bit more stimulation in that direction. All right, so some other things people have tried are knowledge sharing workshops, training programs, as well as technical assistance. All right, so some of the specific sectors that the World Bank has focused on were construction, electronics, plastics, and food systems, right? And it's good that we've had a few representatives talking about electronics, one talking about plastics, and of course our compost tumbler is a system of generating food by extension, right? So that's it for my presentation. Thank you all very much. If you're interested in purchasing the Captain Turner, you can get my contact through Hadeed, and I will send you the link to order a compost tumbler. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. I'm really happy that you pointed to the issue of what we might call socio-cultural biases and the baggage of history, our history that would have us make those negative associations with creativity, you know, and the fact that people would find ways to keep things in the loop, you know, extend the life of products as part of the circular model. It really does take a certain type of thinking, I believe. I think we are heading in that direction, albeit slowly, to embrace the idea that not having new things at every turn is not necessarily a signifier of your own value as a human being. You know, I think there's definitely some work to be done there in societies like ours. But thank you for making that point among many others. And I think it's also useful what we've been hearing here, what we've been getting so far, and we will get with Troy as well, is the role that business and business opportunities, ideas, innovation plays in this entire conversation, that it's not just a government issue or a consumer issue, but it's at the entire spectrum, really, that we have to address. So thank you very much, Richard, for your presentation. We go now to our final presenter, Troy Hadeed. Troy is a proud Trinbagonian with a love for yoga, and he's taught yoga internationally for over 15 years and founded several successful businesses, including a hemp store, a waste oil recycling business under the name Eco Impact, and a yoga studio. During his senior year at the University of Tampa, Troy participated in a study abroad program called Semester at Sea, which took him to 15 different countries and exposed him to a wealth of cultures and experiences. Writing his first letter to the editor at the age of 10, Troy has walked coast to coast across Central America, navigated the world on a ship, spent prolonged periods in silence and darkness, and is continuously seeking to make sense of the human experience. Troy lives in the forested north coast of Trinidad among the majestic hills of Paramin and continues to share the practice of yoga and spends his mornings writing on the wings of hummingbirds and coffee. A slightly more artistic bent there to that intro, but Troy Hadeed, I'm handing over to you now.
Yeah, hi guys, can you all hear me and see me? Yeah, I kind of feel, Richard, I feel like you or Juan should have closed this this webinar. I feel it's been so long for me since I have been involved in environmental work or been any kind of environmental activist, that I think so much has happened since I kind of moved in another direction, and I want to applaud and thank you guys for the work that you do. But I have been asked to come here to tell a little bit of my story of Eco Impact and how that started and that journey. But I actually want to go a little bit before that, right? I could talk a lot. Adi knows that, so she could stop me if she needs. But most people, when they hear I had a recycling business, they're like, what? What business was that? Because I'm mostly known for Mystic Hemp back in the day, which was a hemp store. And I remember coming back from university and my dad goes, well, what are you going to do with your life? So I'm going to run a hemp store. Like, hemp, what's that? I'm like, cannabis sativa that is going to save the environment. And that was my whole pitch was the environmental impact of cannabis sativa. And that hemp store, most people know, was open for about 7 years. And I'm proud to say it was Trinidad's first hemp store, maybe only since then, I don't know. But it didn't sell paraphernalia or any of that stuff. It was strictly merchandise, consumer goods, cosmetics, clothing, that kind of stuff. But what happened along the years was that it kind of morphed into more like a reggae culture kind of hemp shop. And after about 7 years, I realized that, I got into this to have environmental impact, to shift people's perspectives, to be more environmentally conscious. And while we were doing some beach cleanups and so on, I realized that that wasn't really happening, that I had come so far away from that I was more as a retail store owner encouraging consumerism. And I think that edged me into another direction, right? And I remember realizing that, of course, retail stores are really hard business-wise, and that had its challenges. But I remember pulling into my driveway one day, and I was driving a Musso diesel vehicle at that point, and I got out my vehicle and I could smell the diesel exhaust. And it's almost like something hit me like a bomb. It's like, I'm going to convert my vehicle to run on biodiesel. I'm going to run my vehicle on biodiesel. I'm going to make a statement in this society that is so driven by fossil fuels and oil and gas. So I got really fired up to do that. And I went to Colorado to a place I think called Solar Energy International. And I went to learn how to make a biodiesel processor at home. My plan was I was going to come home, collect waste cooking oil, make biodiesel, run my vehicle on biodiesel, and shake stuff up, right? And so I went and I learned how to make that processor, and I came back home and I realized, well, making biodiesel involves methanol. And I'm not the most, I'm not a scientist, and I'm not the most particular in the way I do things. I was like, I'm probably going to blow stuff up. So I made a conscious decision that making biodiesel was probably not my best avenue here. So what I did is I converted the vehicle to run on waste cooking oil, which I learned was possible when I went abroad to learn about biodiesel. So I brought in this kit to convert this vehicle to run on waste cooking oil, and my mechanic thought I was a lunatic. My family thought I was a lunatic. Sometimes they still do. But my mechanic went ahead and entertained my ideas. And I began collecting waste cooking oil from KFC outlets and filtering it by hand and putting it in the vehicle. And then if you remember back then, the vehicle I had covered in a full body sticker showing that it ran on waste cooking oil, waste vegetable oil. But in doing that, I began to look at and acknowledge how much oil was just being poured down the drain from these fast food outlets. And now I had some insight into the biodiesel and waste vegetable oil world, right? Because I had gone to Colorado to learn all about it. And they were, I know this webinar cites me as a pioneer. I don't know what the exact definition of a pioneer is, but there were people collecting waste cooking oil before I began. I don't know on what scale. I don't know what they were doing with it, but there were people collecting waste cooking oil. But they were actually being paid to collect waste cooking oil. So knowing the industry and the potential it held, I decided, well, I'm going to invest. So I closed Mystic Hemp, the store, and I invested everything I had to set up this filtering plant, the processing plant to process wheat cooking oil. I bought a truck. I went out every day. I contacted KFC. I said, listen, I'll collect your oil for free. Right now, you're paying to collect it. I'll collect it for free. And started collecting the oil on my own, bringing the oil back, pouring it into drums, filtering it. I had invested in a centrifuge and a heater. So everything that it would take to extract the water and the sediment from the waste cooking oil. My dad thought, he was like, you're wasting all your money. He's like, what are you doing? But when it was all set up and I made some contacts, you know, and started collecting this oil, of course, KFC welcomed it. There's like, you're saving us money. You're collecting oil for free. As long as you could collect on time, we'll give you a business. And the business began to go from there, right? And then, you know, I remember when these foreigners from Europe flew in to look at the product we were creating, the waste cooking oil, and the moisture content and the sediment content, and actually see it firsthand, and presented contracts and so on. I remember my father being like, what is happening? Because to them, I had invested all my money to collect trash, right? And it was waste to somebody, but that's a good thing, right? So from there, you know, business began to grow and began to hire employees and get more trucks. And eventually I did that maybe for about 5 or 6 years, and the business grew to a point where we were exporting probably about 24,000 gallons of waste cooking oil a month to Europe, to be made as into biodiesel, right? So waste cooking oil is a biodiesel feedstock. And along a journey, I don't know what time I'm at, but I'll try and wrap up soon and not talk too long. Along a journey, people would ask, well, why don't you use it locally? And the reality was that if I could, on the international market, it was worth twice as much. But due to our subsidies on oil and gas, that you couldn't really use it. It wasn't sustainable if we used it locally. I do believe that there will come a point when it is sustainable for us to use that waste cooking oil locally, but it was all exported to Europe. And then I came to a point where I recognized that I personally could not take a business where it could go. I personally, as an individual, could not fulfill the potential of that business. And that it had come to a time when I had to sell it or hand it off. And that's when the Hadco group got involved, and they bought Eco Impact and have grown it into something really beautiful. You know, now they also have moved into recycling lithium batteries, car batteries, I believe. They've moved to recycling tires, and they have this facility in Freeport. But I knew that was the point in which I had to step back. I don't believe if I was still at the helm of Eco Impact that it would still be around today, honestly. I don't think I would have been able to warrant times like COVID and the pandemic and make it through that. I think that for Eco Impact to grow to where it's grown, it needed a much more capable force behind it. And that's what these guys came and did. And, you know, it's so interesting because, sure, I had always thought of that happening, but I never connected the dots that what we were doing at Eco Impact, one, was working US dollars. It was environmentally friendly. It was actually really financially sustainable. So as a business, it held so much opportunity. And I think for entrepreneurs, recycling of product actually, with the right support, can be really financially feasible and sustainable. I do believe that there needs to be way more support from the government. And I'm not too familiar with where that has gone or where it's come to now. It sounds like there is more support from the government happening. But I would also like to mention, you know, there was a point, I talked about this in my recent book, there was a point where I personally shifted my focus from the environment. And I want to mention why, because I think for anyone doing environmental work, it's important to know it. It's important for all of us to know it, right? And I was driving down the road on the North Coast Road, and I saw someone toss a box of KFC out the window. And I was outraged, right? I was young, I was passionate, I thought I represented this environmental kind of persona or whatever. And I got really personally outraged. Why? I mean, just into bush, like, why would we do that? Why would someone do that? How disconnected do they have to be? And in that moment, I think something hit me really hard. And this was when I still had Mr. Kent. Something hit me really hard when I recognized that that person, one, sure, no one had shown, maybe no one taught them an environmental responsibility or do's and don'ts. But more importantly, I realized that so much of our society lacks a sense of security and a sense of safety and belonging. And if someone lacks that sense of security, safety, belonging, how can I, who've grown up in a privileged world and a world of security, how can I expect them to care about something beyond their own individual needs and desires? How can I ask someone to be part of something larger, to consider a larger collective and their impact on it, when that larger collective and that system never really showed them that they care anyway? And I realized that the environmental issues that we face are really so interwoven into everything else. And I feel that the environmental work we're doing is amazing, but it has to happen along with everything else, all the other emotional, mental work that needs to be done among our society, our communities, and our system. And I think, I don't know how long I've been chatting for now, but I think that would be a really good place to wrap for a moment.
Thank you very much, Troy. I think you've given us some thinking to do at the end there. And I think it's always so useful to make the connections, because none of this exists in a vacuum, and none of the work we do exists in a vacuum either. And so thank you for bringing it back to that point, because oftentimes we do get bedeviled by the why we in Trinidad and Tobago in particular, because one of the things you'll notice about this webinar is that it's very heavily focused here, whereas typically these webinars, these Cari-Bois webinars, we try to bring more of a regional perspective. But we do believe, while we share some of the issues, environmental issues, with the rest of the region, we do have a particular sort of penchant here for throwing things away and not in the most responsible way. So thank you again to all of our presenters this morning for taking the time to share your ideas, your thoughts, and your experiences as well. I think those are really invaluable. And Troy, your journey no less so. Even if you may not identify as an activist or somebody actively working in the field, I think your journey, the journey you've described for us, it's a useful addition to the conversation when we think of the potential that exists for work to be done. So on that note, I would like to open now to our audience. You can share your comments or questions, of course, via the chat. You can also turn on your mics, unmute yourselves. If you like, you can turn your video on as well. And we can get the conversation going. Yeah, any questions you may have for any of the presenters, even Alyssa, she's still here with us. So if there's anything more you may want to know about the Daz Good Ting campaign, maybe how you can get involved, feel free to share those questions as well now. I see we have something in the chat here from Talia. Talia from Ideas Eye Foundation. Talia is asking, does the waste management rules and fees regulations support inclusivity? Recognition of waste pickers and micro handlers. CBOs, that's community-based organizations, and informal collectors and handlers such as rural communities. Well, Talia, that's a really big question. I'm not sure if you had anybody in mind to answer it, or if any of our presenters would like to take a stab at it. Richard, Juan, Troy, I know you did mention that you're not super au fait with all the movements in the environmental policy space. But if anybody else would like to weigh in on that, you're free to do that. Or Talia, if you'd like to clarify, maybe direct the question specifically to someone, you can also jump on and do that. Talia? Or Juan, you'd like to answer?
Hi, Talia. The actual system, and in that I'm going to also direct it to Troy. We all within in order to be I will try to answer two questions at once. In order to be an environmentalist, you have all the passion. You need to be a very passionate guy, either or both, by the environment itself, by the humans into the environment, because we form part of the environment, or by the business that it generates. So when I in the beginning, when I was passionate, people used to call me crazy man because I used to go on the side of the highway with a bag and pick up plastic from the side of the highway. And they say, Juan, but they used to call me, are you okay? Are you sure you okay? Everything home good? Your home is okay? Your wife, child? I said, why? Well, we see you in a strange activity on the highway. I say, I was just picking up some garbage. I mean, I saw it dirty and I wanted to see it cleaner. Okay, sir, okay. So yes, it reached a point that your emotions play with your brain and make you do things. Now, obviously, the approach, like your approach, because I still remember your vehicle, of course, and I smell it. And I remember the wrapping around, I remember you chop everything. And you make basically a foundation for so much other guys that came after, they are working after, because obviously you was one of the pioneers in Trinidad. And up to today's day, we still at Flying Tree work with your organization, okay? Because we are still actually trying to find solutions together with Hadco Group, and the cooking containers and the cooking oil and all the problems that they have, a lot of problems, but we're trying to get involved and find solutions. So your foundation is still working, even though you don't believe you're there, because remember, you will be there forever. And in that same note, the government, we need more advocacy, and yes, we need the government to actually realize that we actually do nothing by investing sometimes in, let me just mention any investment, any building, any highway, any road, any place, if is not going to carry us to a more worthy life. We do nothing by investing in Maracas Beach, $20 million in beautifying Maracas Beach when you have a river contaminated with polluted waters emptying inside the water when your children bed. You're supposed to take the $20 million and clean the river first and leave the beach as it was virgin. People will enjoy more a cleaner water than a beautiful car park. That's my point of view, no? It's very difficult. In the same thing that Talia tried to explain. No, the government is not yet. It might happen after I pass through. Maybe it will be the next gen. But the government eventually need to take the resources and put the resources where they're supposed to be with respect to the pollution issues we have in Trinidad. Right now, no, government doesn't encourage those kind of things. We have Green Fund, of course, and we also have the bottle bill coming, and we have the EMA new 2022 rules of wastage producers and handlers coming on game, and the CECs. I mean, we have things coming along, but the effort have not been enough like other countries. You know that they are already way more advanced than Trinidad and Tobago. It's not enough done yet. I am very hopeful that with all the people working together, eventually this government or any other coming after will actually take more interest in the important part of life. And sometimes the important part of life are not pretty vehicles and hot cell phones and whatever, because it's more about that, about making a better environment. And then to finish these answers, just as Mr. Troy explained, I passed through that and I realized that by explaining about the plastic pollution handling from a business point of view, the plastic pollution problem will finish. Because if it become a business profitable for investors, then the plastic will become a commodity and it will not be garbage anymore. It will be raw materials. Of course, it's a long topic, but it's the only way. I don't believe in people anymore, like Troy. I don't believe anymore in just the passion. I not anymore. Now I believe that the only solution for the pollution is the involvement of the private sector, not even the government. Private sector with the profits and the whole machinery that put the plastic there to make a profit, and now need to take it back by making a profit. So I do believe on the advocacy to make that highway open for private investment to solve the pollution, the plastic pollution at least. Okay.
Thank you so very much, Juan, for that, for touching all the notes that you did. I think they all resonate. We have a question here from Wilma. Charles, for Richard. I read that plastics are being shipped from Trinidad and Tobago to a South American country for recycling. Is that still in effect? And okay, I'll read the second part after. Go ahead, Richard.
Okay. So I have also heard that. I cannot confirm. However, one could correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think Flying Tree is the main company doing real plastic recycling locally. The vast majority of other recyclers are bailing it and shipping it out either to South America or places in Europe where they have the facilities to properly recycle the material.
Yeah, I wonder if Wilma might be referring to every bottle back and what they're doing with Colombia. Alyssa?
Yeah, I was thinking that same thing. I think that's also what Richard maybe was referring to. It's the Every Bottle Back that's located on Charlotte Street.
Yes.
Yeah, well, if so, then yeah, they, from what I know, do bail the plastic pellets of the country to South America.
All right, and Wilma also. Sorry, Richard. What's that?
I was just saying I didn't call anybody's name.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's
no,
fine.
but they're quite familiar. They are actually partially funded under the same IDB Lab project that the Daz Good Ting program campaign is under.
Yes.
Every good effort is a good effort. It's okay to name people because everybody on the same book. It's okay to name Hadco Group. It's okay to name Every Bottle Back and Republic Bank and Coca-Cola and Dominic Hadeed and everybody who is involved in collecting back the plastics, either or to do business or to clean the environment, as I just said. The bottles and the plastics in general are a very, very, very delicate and sensible pricing commodity to export and process. Thank God, sometimes the oil is high and sometimes it's low. Sometimes it's profitable to ship it out. Sometimes it's not. When it's not profitable, Milagro Solutions and Flying Tree Environmental Management is the local source for these guys to carry the materials that cannot be exported. And Flying Tree in the industrial estate in Arima is converting all these non-exportable items into usable items like plastic lumber and eco cement. There are new players. Yeah.
Juan, sorry, if I could just interrupt you, can you clarify which materials are the ones that are generally not exportable?
Okay, the PET bottles are all the soft drink bottles and so on. Once that they are clean and once that they don't have a PET, PVC, cross PVC or PP wrappers, they could be exported for some amount of money. Once that they are properly baled on a single, like on a single type, like all the clay, all the blue, all the green, all the brown, they could be exported for certain amount of money. The wraps and films, once they are properly baled, they could be properly clean and from a single source, they could be properly exported for money. Some other plastic like high and low density polyethylene, like shampoo bottles and other bottles could be exported, but all depend of the key in all this industry is the sorting at the source. If it's properly sorted and clean, it could be exported and reused or recycled, or upcycled, even downcycled. Once as you have any pollution, contamination in it, or it's cross-contaminated, what we call cross-contaminated. Imagine I trying to export a container to Brazil or Colombia or China, or whatever. And I forget China, they don't accept anything anymore. When we try to export a container, and in the container I send more than 10% of cross-contaminated with PVC, it might be clean, but the PVC part was in between the bottles of PET, they will ban me forever of exporting to them because they say I am an unreliable source. And how can you be totally reliable? By having a proper infrastructure of sorting or pre-sorting at the source and even at the landfill. But remember, it's a whole chain, training and investing in sorting at the source, as what we kind of doing right now with all of our community outreaches, you call it. We trying to convince the people buying into our idea, where by sorting at the source will make a better economy and a better country. If we invest into this and we get a proper sorting at the source, not only communities, but also sorting at the source in industry. Because I get a lot of material from industry that is not properly sorted. So when it's sorted, it could be exported. When it's not sorted, it needs to remain in Trinidad and Tobago. And thank God, I will say, all the glories to God, not to me. We at Flying Tree and Milagro Solutions, we have the capacity of producing right now, installed capacity up to 1,000 kilos per hour of wastage. And you will think as a Trinidadian, that's something good. To be comfortably talking, I need at least to be able to produce 10 tons an hour. Right now, we're only producing 1 ton.
So, Juan, what are the materials that you all are taking that are not being exported? So we know that the PETs go out, but what are some of the materials? Because I think that's one of the issues I often encounter when talking with people about this, not knowing what to do with the non-PET materials.
Great. We created a process that is not new to the world, because Europeans actually have it more advanced than me, and also South American, like Colombia and Brazil. We basically copy but adapt it to our dirty materials, and we retrofitted machinery and equipment to use any type of plastic. When I say any type, I mean you think about a plastic something, you put it on the polymer group. Polymers are the structural base of any plastic. And once you think about the plastic, let me just say for the people who will not know polymers, let's say an old fan cover, a fan footing, an old chair, a cooler, a tank, a water tank, a barrel, toys, shoes, glasses, personal items, personal hygiene items, shampoo bottles. Let me just see around me here, bags, totem from Superfarm, totems, like a plastic totem. I see a helmet. I seen some warning tape. I seen bottles. I seen a roof made out of PVC, air condition covers. I seen what you have there, a lot
So
of chairs.
everything.
Well, I just talking about Aromi. Look, we have cell phone covers. We have anything that is plastic. We grind it, mince it, blend it, depending on the material we want. And we mix it also because we also collect. Troy will be identifying. I know very good what you was talking about because we collect manually oil from vehicles, car oil. And we introduce by heat and pressure car oil back into the plastics to give the plastic back the plasticity and the color you see in my products. And so depending what the item goes for, like it's a plank for a boardwalk, like what we're doing we just started in Gasperi. The boardwalk planks will be tan color, like a brownie looking like wood. That is the oil color from the burnt vehicle oil. And we're taking the oil that's supposed to just dump on the environment, like everybody dump it on the drainage. And we collect it ourselves with our vehicles and we mix it and blend it to a point. And we carry it to around 350 tons of pressure. And for now, we're going to increase the pressure. And then we created the plastic lumber. The plastic lumber actually accept any type of plastic regardless the netia. Now, you may laugh.
Juan, I know you can talk about this from now until, but we don't have much time left. We will be wrapping up in 5 minutes. I just wondered if you could let people know how they can get their materials to you, those materials, all of those materials you mentioned.
Okay. You need to support the local agencies. Try not to duplicate anymore. Support local agencies. Who is the local agencies? We have a beautiful campaign going with the DMA. They are not supposed to do it, but they did it. And it did work out very good. We're talking about IKEA program. IKEA program cannot die. It need to continue running because it is doing a good job. We have Every Bottle Bag is doing a good job. We have Hatco and New Age Group and Eco Impact is doing a good job. We have all the local entities already working and anything in you have Cachu Gardens, okay? And we have Kernaham Cascados Community Center, Roxborough in Tobago, Roxborough Police Youth Club, Arima Police Youth Club, Flying Tree Environmental Management. You take your bottles or your plastics there. As I told you, when they cannot use it or they cannot process it, we always find a way to bring it by me. And if I find something that they could use and they could process, then I will find my way to carry it to them. We are doing a beautiful effort. Okay.
Thank you very much, Juan. I think it's so important to emphasize how this is working as an ecosystem and that it's not people in silos. And the only way it can work is if we do more of that kind of work together. Troy, I just wanted to read this comment from Wilma for you. It was so enriching to hear your contribution. I've learned so much now about waste cooking oil and also view persons who pollute in a different light. Thank you, Troy. So that's from Wilma. And now I don't think we have much time left, but if anybody wanted to get a last word in or question very quickly, we have just 3 minutes left on the call. No?
I would like to do a note of appreciation to a very special person in Swim Call. Swim Call group, they have many wonderful people there, but Mr. Ryan she will always have my immense appreciation. She is one of the drivers of Flying Tree to become where we are, and Swim Call in the whole doing a good job. I hope they do a lot better also, but we all together going to finish with this plastic issue. Okay, thanks, Mr. Ryan.
Fantastic. Did somebody have a raised hand, or was that applause from Leon?
I don't know. I'd just like to say thank you to Hadeed, to you, Annie Foundation, and this entire webinar. And thank you for having me and the work you do. And Juan, what you're doing sounds nuts. And one day I'm going to come and visit soon because it sounds really exciting.
Thank you to all of our presenters. Richard, I'm not sure if you're still there, But thank you so much, all three of you, for making the time to share your work with us. And I'm sure we'll find ways to collaborate again in future. Of course, my colleague Alyssa for taking the time to share about Daz Good Ting. Please, everybody, look out for the campaign, look for the social media page. I mean, it's very catchy, Daz Good Ting. You don't need to know how to spell it. Please tell folks about it. We would really like to get the word out about the campaign and really build up some interest and momentum for it before we close out that project. But as Alyssa mentioned, we would really like to retain the slogan and the action around Daz Good Ting. All right, so on that note, I would like to bring today's webinar to an end, and I want to acknowledge my colleague, Terrell Gittens, who's the coordinator of the Cari-Bois Environmental News Network. He's the one responsible for putting together these webinars, and you can look out for some more coming up later this year. We'll be focused in the next two on climate, the climate breakdown webinar series. So look out for what we have coming up in May. And I think we leave it there for now. Please have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, thank
Take care.
you. Thank you all.
Bye.
Everyone.
And thanks to all the camera people behind the scenes as well.
Yeah,
Thank
Yes,
you.
thanks, Brandon.
Okay, bye, folks.